everyone. I'm Linda Nickell, and welcome to the Happiness Hour. Every Wednesday, photographers from all over the country, and tonight we've got a speaker from Canada. Well, we all meet here to connect, inspire, and create. Our guest speakers share images, photography tips, and their stories of inspiration that help you improve your own photography skills. The schedule for upcoming presentations is on my website at lindanickell.com, as well as the links to previous sessions that I place on my YouTube channel. Tonight's guest is Darlene Perkin. Darlene is based in Manitoba, Canada. Her work ranges from still life photography to astrophotography, with a little bit of everything else that gives her a nice collection of photographs. In tonight's presentation, Elevate Your Creativity with a Photo Project, Darlene is going to talk about how to build a body of work that is exciting and meaningful. It also engages others in your work and makes them feel a part of it as they contribute ideas and suggestions. Darlene is currently working on her own project, the Red Chair Adventures. So we'll get to see a little bit of that project as she shares her tips and ideas so that you can make your own photo project successful. If you're on Instagram, look for her at Roscoe Dosco and on her website at perkind.myportfolio.com. And I'll put those in the show notes. So, Darlene, welcome to the Happiness Hour.
Oh, thank you, Linda. It's great to be here. I'm excited.
It's okay. Before we get started, before we hit that share screen, we're going to do a little bit of full disclosure. So, Darlene has been an attendee for the Happiness Hour for a long, long time. And honestly, I don't remember how you found us, but you've been coming for a long time. And I follow you, and I've been seeing you post your Red Chair adventures. And I was curious, and I thought, I think this would be a great topic. And of course, I thought she might say no, but I'm going to at least ask. And you didn't. So thank you for not saying no, because some people try to, and I have to pull out the big guns. But I'm happy to have you as a guest tonight, as a speaker tonight. So with that, I kind of skimmed over a bio for you. If there's anything that you want to fill in for us, please take that opportunity.
That's great. I think I'll just get started, and I have a little blurb about myself, just so that you get to know a little bit more about where I'm coming from. Okay, well, as you can see by my title slide, I wanted to talk about elevating your creativity with a photo project. And this particular picture is taken in my winter home, which is Mazatlan, Mexico. And why a photo project? Well, a project gets you out of a photographic rut. And I felt I was in a bit of a rut, I felt like I was taking the same scenics and the same landscape shots and going to the same places. And the project I'm going to show you allows me to focus my creative energy in a more disciplined way, and I guess I am more focused. So a little bit about me. I'm from Brandon, Manitoba, Canada, and I've been taking photos since I was a teenager. I've been a member of the Brandon Camera Club for a lot of years. I've been president several times, served on a lot of the committees, and we have a really active club here that does, I feel that we keep up to date pretty well with current trends. I taught evening photography classes at a community college for adults for 25 years. So I've done everything from darkroom to Photoshop to just regular photography courses.
Darlene,
Mhm.
Let me interrupt you real quick. Several people are saying you're a little soft spoken, so we're going to have to get you to speak up a little bit louder or move.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I hear you fine, but Valerie's old, so
Okay.
her ears aren't as good as mine.
Okay. I've also taught smartphone photography classes because I really got into smartphone or iPhone photography when iPhones first came out. So I really find that a fascinating area. Okay, so I come from Brandon, Manitoba, so way up north here, and I just put this map down to Austin so that you could see, and I'm pretty much directly north, but 1,500 miles. Brandon's the heart of an agricultural area. It's called the Wheat City. And so this is some of our farm areas. Canola is a big crop, and the wheat in the background, of course. Lots of agriculture, cattle, ranching, and so on. We're also kind of the geographical center in North America. That's just over the border in North Dakota. We're just an hour from the US border. The old grain elevators were a big part of the agriculture in this area. Most of these have been replaced by big cement structures now for the grain that's shipped out. Of course, we have wonderful sunsets, and in June, the sun here doesn't set till about 10:30, 11 at night, and the sun gets up about 4:30 in the morning, so we have really, really long days. In the winter, of course, we have shorter days, but these summer sunsets are really something. It's an area where we have a lot of wildlife. I have a cottage that's an hour north of Brandon, and it's in a national park, Riding Mountain National Park. So lots of wildlife. We have a huge black bear population, and last spring I was lucky enough to get the 4 cubs and the mother bear up in the aspen trees eating the brand new leaves. So this is something I waited for years. I was pretty happy to get this shot. And then we got the little cubs as they came down off the trees, but I spend a lot of time looking for bears. We also have a lot of moose, lots of deer, just wildlife in general. There's lots of elk in our park. They're really shy, but I caught this one on the July 1st fireworks, and this is actually a statue in the town site that's close to my cottage. So just to give you a little overview of the area. And if you come this way, you might be lucky enough to see the Northern Lights. So that's just over a little lake that's behind my cottage. So I just wanted to say, the world is really a canvas for our imagination, and there's so many things you can do with photography. It's just so exciting all the time, all the new techniques that are coming out and all the new things you can try. So you just have to take a little time and think about what you want to do if you're doing a project, and the ideas will just start to come. I've done a few projects over the years. This one was kind of exciting. As I said, I spend my winters in Mazatlan, Mexico, and after I got home, I had a message from a friend who said, I think somebody's trying to get hold of you. This guy put a message and he's looking for a knob that was interested in photography. And I'm going, a knob? I'm really offended, but a knob is just a north of border. And I got in touch with this guy, and yeah, he wanted to do a photo project when we were in Mazatlan because he was living there full time. So he was an American from Minnesota, I think. And we got together and we decided to do this year-long project, the ABC project. So we ended up doing it together and doing a book together. The project ended with a show in Mazatlan at their arts center. And this project took a year because we did a letter of the alphabet every 2 weeks. So that worked out perfectly for the year. There were no rules really, except the S had to be a self-portrait. So that was just kind of the rule for that project. We found this project really made people get involved. They were always coming up and asking me what letter I was on, and they were wanting to contribute ideas. So for example, when E came along, I had this idea that, gee, I was going to do, you know, birds of some sort or an eagle. And someone said, oh, what letter are you on? Oh, we have an eagle and we'll take you out on our boat. We see it right in our area around our cottage. So off we went early one morning and went out on the boat. And of course, we didn't see the eagle that day. I don't think I ever did see the eagle that year, but my E project or my E letter became an egg. But then everybody was interested in what I did with each letter. You know, and went along, like for H, I had this idea about doing hair. So it connected me to this student in a photography course. And I had to get parental permission. So again, another connection. And then everybody's interested to see your post on Facebook. You know, what did you do? What was your picture for that letter? So then I took a course that I signed up for online with Carolyn from, she has a course, Still Waters, and she does still life. And that's how I found out about Linda Nickell, because Carolyn was a guest in one of the early shows that Linda was doing. And so I thought, oh, well, I'm going to go on that night and just see what's going on. And I really enjoyed it. So I've been back a lot of times. Really enjoy the show, Linda. So we did a still life journey with Carolyn. And again, it built her body of work during COVID because you couldn't go anywhere, do anything. We had really strict rules. There was just no interpersonal interaction for a period of time. So this was a great way to get to know people in the class. And then as a result, I got to know the happiness hour as well. These projects connect you to other groups, like maybe 365 Picture Today. I've done that for a few years as well. And you really connect with people. Oh, this was one of the pictures out of the still stories, the still life journey that I did. And it was just in my office with afternoon sunlight coming in, just beautiful light. So anyway, when you get into these projects, like I'm doing the red chair adventures, one of the girls in the 365 Picture Today thought that she would like to do a white chair. And so we kind of did that all last year, where she would do a white chair picture and I would do a red chair picture. And I'm not sure if she's going to keep on with it, but it really connects you to people. So finally, the project I'm going to focus on tonight and show you some ideas that I've had. This was my first year of the Red Chair, and it's called the Red Chair Diaries. I don't know if any of you ever remember the TV show, the Red Shoe Diaries, but I thought that was kind of a cool name, so I did the Red Chair Diaries. And in this case, out in the prairie, about this time of year, and just had my Mexican shoes there. I call those my TV watching shoes because you can't walk in them or stand in them. You just put them on and look at them. So with the Red Chair Diaries, I was able to build a portfolio of work that was kind of exciting to me. And I visited places that I wouldn't go otherwise. And I met people that were really interested in this project. Really gave a new dimension to my work. Instead of just taking a prairie landscape scene like this, did something a little different. So this is a big thank you to the guy, and this is my husband. And he's been going on a lot of photo forays with me during the pandemic, and he's really good at helping set up and so on. He's a professional musician. He plays in a lot of bands. And so I've been a groupie for over 50 years. And I told him that he owed me a little bit of time. I've gone to a lot of gigs and helped out with a lot of band events. So I wanted to talk about, the different things that a project can do for you and things that might happen or what's happened to me. And I found that it really engages others in your work. Not only the people that you meet when you go out to places, but other photographers and other photographers that come with me will start going, oh, maybe the chair would look good here or over here. And they start helping me set things up. So this was one of my helpers, and this guy almost got the props. Boy, he was interested in the can of wildflowers. But I went over to my friend's saloon on their ranch. It's a little barn and they have a saloon in it. And it's just full of props. So it was just a great place to go. Hours just sped by. My friend Jan was there. She was busy getting out her authentic old cowboy boots. She's got a collection of coffee pots. So we tried all different things on the potbelly stove. And of course, they've got all kinds of, the ropes, the authentic hats and so on. And I love the book, Don't Squat with Your Spurs On. So I'm going to go through some pictures and just sort of give the story, a little bit of the story behind and, what happened when I went out. So I was just downtown in Wasagaming, which is the little town site in the park. And there was this beautiful gal, and she was with a photographer. They were doing her grad pictures. So I went over and asked the photographer if she would, I told her about my red chair and would she mind if we did a couple of shots. And no, she was more than helpful. And this young gal posed and we did a few shots. I had to be really quick because I was cutting into their time. But as it turned out, I knew her mom. And again, that brought a lot of people onto Facebook to check out these pictures, because the next day I put up 2 or 3 pictures and they were just so excited that she had her picture taken on the red chair. So this shot took a couple of years to set up. By the time we got, by the time I got in touch with the owner of this car and we got things set up, and then when we did have a photo date, finally, she ended up getting COVID. So then we had to wait a couple more weeks and so on. But finally we got the red chair with the little red Volkswagen. And then did a setup picture, and I call this the flirt. And set up the chair as if it's the guy with the Crown Royal, which is Canadian whiskey, the cowboy hat, and the tie. So just a lot of fun doing the setup and trying different things and with the owner of the car, in the car and out of the car and so on. Can do a whole series. Then these people wanted me to come over to their home that's on a golf course, and here they are busy helping, and we just had so much fun that night. She took me around the golf course, and our purpose was to see the geese with the goslings. And then there was a big storm coming, so we were whipping around. There was lightning, and it was quite an exciting night all in all. But trying to get the geese, and of course, when we stop, the geese are going in the opposite direction. So it wasn't exactly what I was hoping for, but we sure had a good time. This is just it's the cutest picture. This is in a town that's an hour north of our cottage, and we'd gone to get groceries there. And the CN passenger train came into the station, and we don't have many passenger trains in Canada. So it was kind of exciting to see it. And I whipped into the parking lot and I said to my husband, okay, let's get the chair over there. And this little guy was getting off the train and he was so excited. His eyes were just riveted on that chair. And his dad said, no, you can't sit on it. That's not yours. And I said, well, would you like to sit on the chair? And look at him. He was so excited and just such a fun, it was just such a fun time talking to the conductor and this little kid having such a great time on the chair. So just another way of involving people. This is my family picnic that we had last year. And we did the regular picture, and then I put the chair in and just told everyone to imagine who they would like to have sitting in that chair today. And of course, everybody would love to have their mom or their dad or their favorite aunt or whatever back sitting in the chair. So just another way of engaging people and adding a little bit more meaning to your pictures. So the other thing that a photo project will do, or a project like this, it really makes you think a lot about what props you want to use. And you start imagining, well, I wonder how it would look with this or with that. And I decided that I was going to do something that's very, I guess it's very Canadian. These are the Hudson Bay Company stripes, they're called. So it's the Hudson Bay colors. And I wanted to incorporate them into some of my pictures. So I borrowed some mitts, and it's a little Hudson Bay blanket, and used them to kind of add a little bit of the local flavor to the pictures. And it's always good to include an extra camera, of course. It gives a little different twist to it. So just another version of using the stripes, having the coffee mug there and the mitts. So it gives you a little sense of the time of year. It's still early spring, a little chilly, and the chair would be a nice place to sit in the sun. This was another instance of borrowing props. I went to a fellow that runs a campground and he collects a lot of stuff. So he was more than willing to dig out some old oil cans for me to take to this old, it's actually an old garage, but they've painted it up recently and just do a few repairs in it. And then I paid a visit to a fellow. He was kind of a hippie-ish guy in his younger years. I guess he's still kind of hippie-ish, and he is very into nature and has this acreage right on the edge of Brandon, and he taps for maple syrup in the spring. So these pails are actually collecting the syrup from the maple trees, or the sap rather. And then he has a spot, he's got the sugaring off shack where he does the firing and ends up boiling this all down. So once again, just kind of thinking about what I wanted to wear there and what would fit in with this theme. So of course, the red plaid shirt, the Hudson Bay mitts, and you can tell it's cool. So I got to check the syrup, check how fast it was dripping into, or the sap, how fast it was dripping in, and, you know, use the chair as a prop in there. So it's almost this time of year here. This is our first flower in spring, the first wildflower, and it's the prairie crocus. And it only lasts for probably a week to 10 days. Not very big. You have to dig around in all the dead grass and kind of clean up your spot and find it. But I used the chair in there. I stood it up, and that isn't going to work because these flowers are so small. So by lying it down and just having a little portion of it in there, it kind of fit into the whole scene. And then I took along a little nest that I have with these eggs in it. And I thought that kind of added to the whole scene too. So once again, thinking about what props you want to use. This is the Go Fly a Kite day. Really windy. We get lots of wind in the spring, and the snow is gone here, but nothing is growing yet. So we're just in a stubble field. But just another idea what you might want to do if you're thinking of props. I kind of like to do things that show the seasons. And now we're into the spring season. Our lilac season is in June. And I stopped at this abandoned spot, little cottage that was abandoned, and just set it up. And I took along a little post office, or a little post box, a letter box. So just thinking about the props again. I was setting up this sunset shot one night and had my wine bottle and the glasses there. And a paddleboarder came along and paddled right through my picture, which was just perfect. So then when she came in, of course, we had a discussion, and again, made a new friend, gained a new follower, and she was very interested in the pictures. So just setting up your scene, planning for the time of day. I knew that on this dock I would get sunset at this time. So you just start working with everything you can figure out to make your shot work. So the other thing that a photo project can do, will make you consider locations, and you'll start looking for different locations. So I've got quite a few locations just so that you can get an idea of the scope of what I was doing. So your locations can be unique, things that you hear about that you maybe wouldn't go to see, but now you're thinking, gee, I can do my project there. Or it might be the ordinary places that you see on your day-to-day travels. So these are some of my more unique locations. I'd seen an ad for this little family, what's it called? I think it's a family-sized fun yard. And I phoned the girl and told her about my red chair, and she says, oh, come, that's great. I've got these new little goats, and come. So I went out and we set things up, and she kept bringing all the different animals out, and we tried them around the chair and on the chair. And these little goats are called Nubian goats, and they were the cutest things. Like, look at those ears. And they couldn't stand up on the chair. It was too slippery. So they learned that, hey, we got to just sit down here. So they were great little models. Had a great time meeting this gal who's running this operation. And then we had Walter, the potbelly pig, there, and learned a few things about a lot of these other little animals. Of course, here we are documenting the seasons. You can all guess what this is. It's Easter. I tried this where there wasn't snow, and the eggs didn't show up nearly as well as they showed up under the trees where there was still this snow left last year. It's just kind of fun to come up with all these different ideas. And, you know, I had this, the sign that I put on the back of the chair with the rabbit on it. I took that off one of my Easter wreaths. So you just start planning, and you run around with a car full of crates and boxes filled with different things. This picture I call Spotlight on Religion. I was at a film festival, and one of the guys there that had produced a film for it was talking about this church that he had taken over in a little town nearby. And he's turned it into, I guess, a community center, more or less. And I just wanted to go and see it. And he said, sure, just go out anytime. There's someone that's running a business in one end of it, but, you know, just knock and go in. And we went in the morning, and I went up in the choir loft and looked down, and I went, oh, I know where I want that chair, right where the stained glass is, a spotlight on the floor. So again, it's a spot I wouldn't have gone to visit, except I had this idea for the chair. At that same film festival, there was another fellow there who had done another film, and he runs a pottery shop in the old church, which is part way to the cottage. But he's also fascinated with hobbits, and he was telling about the hobbit house that he's built in the back. And so again, I went and paid a visit, and he was just delighted. This is one of his carvings that he put on the chair. And this Hobbit house, if you ever want to come, I think it's now operating as an Airbnb. I noticed a sign the other day. So he's got it all finished and ready to go. And this is it. In the through the woods, he's built this little fence around. He's very artistic. This fellow paints a picture every day in and around our city. So I had contacted him about, having the red chair visit him, and we were trying to coordinate a time. And then I came out of my exercise class, and I drove around the corner, and here he is painting this church. And this picture was really popular on Facebook because it's the day after the last service of this United Church. It had just been sold. The congregation could no longer support the church with COVID, and just the aging population that is religious or supporting religious institutions. They found they couldn't keep this church open. So he was painting the last picture of it, and I came along, and we had a little chat, and then set up his painting things on the chair. So this picture was, it had quite a lot of, it spoke to a lot of people when I put it on Facebook. I was out in the summer, and this came across this old place that's been abandoned. And again, I think it spoke to people because you can tell by the peonies that are still blooming in the long grass that someone had really cared for it, and it was somebody's home. And this spoke to a lot of people as well. And I didn't even get in trouble for cutting some of the peonies to put on the chair. I'm always kind of looking, who's watching me? But this is one where I went out to get the moon rising over the end of, it's called Octopus Lake, and our cottage backs onto it. And don't get excited, it's not a true lake, it's not very deep, but it supports a lot of wildlife, and it acts as a filter for the waters that are going into the national park. It filters the water that is run off out of all the outside areas. So set up the chair there. It's amazing how many cars are on this road that shouldn't be that busy. And it's also amazing how many mosquitoes are out there when you're when you start working in the evening around these bodies of water. So another place that I wanted to have the chair at is quite well known down at the lake, and it's actually called the Canoe Graveyard. People used to put their canoes there and then just leave them for years and years and years and hardly ever use them. So then they said you have to take them out. Well, now kayaks go in there every spring, and you just leave them there all summer. So I took the chair down, and again, I wanted to incorporate a little bit of the northern aspect to it. So I have a paddle painted with the Hudson Bay stripes. And another picture where I've got some people coming in and just in a different location. Kind of off on the left, there's a little bit of orange sticking up, and that's my kayak back in there. I keep mine down there. takes a little bit of thought and work and trying different angles, but you just have to keep thinking about all the different aspects that you want in. This is another unique little location. It's a little cabin that somebody painted in the Hudson Bay colors. So I thought, well, this is pretty good. So off I went with my HBC stuff and did quite a few different shots here. You know, I had it set up with coffee. I had it set up with different things. But again, makes you use your imagination. This is a really special location. It's a historic site where this tree is. This tree is known locally as the halfway tree. It's halfway between Brandon and Winnipeg. And this is an eastern cottonwood that's over 100 years old. And as you can see, it's got a dead branch and they really don't know if they can save the tree or not. They've got people looking at it. Not only it was a foggy day, it was drizzly, and I wanted to stop to get this picture, but it was also very, what was special for me and for a lot of people, because a friend of mine, a close friend, had just passed away, and people really saw this as a tribute to him. Just the atmosphere of the picture. So you've always got to be watching for that. So I'll just go through a few more locations and I'll speed up a little bit here just so that you can see some of the different spots where I took the chair. This is a little shed that everybody drives by up in our area every day. And yet everybody was saying, where did you take that picture? Because they don't notice these little things that are tucked back off the highway. So again, it's peony season and we could tell very springy. Out in the summertime, we've got these huge bales, the round bales, and I'm sure you guys all have those too. And it was just a fun spot to try and get the prairie sky and showing the bales in here too. And then we came across a beautiful patch of fireweed, and I just can imagine sitting there, someone sitting on the chair in that fireweed. It was so peaceful. We kind of have ribbons of gravel road, not a lot of traffic, so you can take your time and do some setups, but just showing again the prairie landscape and the vastness with the empty chair. This one I really liked. I wanted the chair up by this old building and we stopped, and when Jerry carried it up, because it's up a little rise and I was down in the ditch, the chair just disappeared in the vegetation. It was so high. I think there was alfalfa and goldenrod, and chair just disappeared. So he had to bring it out, and then he was standing there and I said, oh, stay there. I just love the diagonal between the chair and him standing, and then that beautiful sky, beautiful clouds in the sky. So just keep looking at all the different spots if you're doing a project like this, and start imagining what you can do with it. Oh, I had an idea. I wanted the chair to go in a canoe, but I'd sold my canoe, so I headed out to a little lake, and I got there, and well, I was in luck because my neighbor was there just ready to go out, and oh, they would love to have the chair in the canoe. And so the chair went for a little canoe ride. Again, just trying out different ideas. I call this ribbons of gravel. I went out with a photographer friend this day, and we were out for about 5 hours in this area, and I think we saw 3 cars and very few farm houses or farm yards. There were some abandoned ones, but the farms have gotten really big, so the farm yards are really spaced out now. But again, showing the canola fields, the wheat on the right, and just the prairie landscape. Then on my travels, I run across these old buildings, and I find I have to write down where they are, or I can never get back to them. But I love this one because it has a little bit of local color. The turquoise on here, I call it Sandy Lake blue. Sandy Lake is a very Ukrainian neighborhood, or a very Ukrainian area. And it seemed like so many people loved this color of blue, or else they had a big sale on it or something. But this house was obviously painted with the Sandy Lake blue, and just a fun place to have the chair, and in this case, a bird cage. This one really had a lot of meaning because in the background, there's a barn that had collapsed in the last year. And I put the do not disturb sign or hat on the chair, and went out in the canola field. And then along came a car, and it was the original owner of the barn, an older man, and he was out, his kids had him out for a drive. So he told me the history of the barn, and they invited me over to their house. So again, making the connections with the people in the area and trying different props. Oh, I went down to Brandon's graffiti wall and tried my hand at graffiti, and I was on a Sunday morning. I didn't think anybody would be there, but there was a fellow there adding to the graffiti wall, and this just keeps changing. Everybody just keeps painting on it. So I tried my hand at it, and then I did him, and he said, yeah, I could take his picture. He was kind of excited about it, but just make sure his face was hidden. He didn't want anybody to know that he'd been down painting on the graffiti wall. And I also put this in to say, you know, when you're doing your pictures, I guess you say, what's the best time to take a vertical? And I always say it's right after you take a horizontal. So I always try to do the horizontal and vertical. You're never sure where that vertical will fit in. And sometimes it gives a little bit different perspective, a little bit different feel to the whole scene. So this is another old house that I just love, this old farmyard, and went in and set up this little scene. And, you know, I can just imagine a young girl sitting and reading, and then going off for a walk through her farmyard. This is quite close to me, so again, showing the changing season. Wide angle lens puts the barn back on a bit of a tilt and really emphasizes the sky. So we're getting into fall here. Just another setup with the props, going on a hike, one of the hiking trails. This is a late spring blizzard last April, and today we had snow, but not very much. It missed us, but an hour north at the cottage, they got a bunch of snow. So again, I set the scene with the snowshoes and went out, and it was a dangerous storm. You can just see there's no visibility. And then I did go out. This is just kind of on the edge of town. I wouldn't dare go out on the highway or anything when it's like this, because with the blowing snow, you can't see anything. The simplicity of this picture just attracted a lot of attention on Facebook and on Instagram as well. So things, you know, just doing a simple thing that shows the weather, and the chair really added something to this scene that was just a whiteout. And again, you know, just keep working at it, just the variations, and you just keep trying different things. Okay, so these locations that you go to, they can help you commemorate special occasions and special times. And I try and do this if something different is happening. So in this case, this was the day that Queen Elizabeth II died, and she always wears wonderful hats. So I didn't have a wonderful hat, but I did have a hat, and I put it on the chair and went down to our Park Information Center, where there's a flower bed that's dedicated to her. And it was at the end of the flower season, unfortunately. This was in September, but I wanted to pay tribute to the Queen that way. So you can use your props to commemorate different occasions. This is a little one-room school that's been kept in just the way it was, basically. And it's open to the public. You can go in anytime. It's way out in the countryside. So I put the chair in there, and then I used it for the first day of school. This is what I posted for the first day of school. And again, the nostalgia effect is there, and people really seem to like this. I also did some HDR on this so that I got a little bit of the outside coming in through the window so that you can see the outside, and then still have the inside light enough to see. Back at our little shed in the fall, and so the Virginia creeper has changed color, so we've had frost already, and just a little setup for fall. Sometimes I just have to be in the pictures myself. It's too difficult to find people to be where I want to be at the right time. So I get a little costuming happening and set this up for a Halloween shot. And just another one in another entirely different location, a couple of hours away. Just to emphasize the falling leaves, and I was throwing leaves in the air and letting them come down and capturing them with a slower shutter speed. Then I needed someone to dress up as a witch, so I contacted this gal, and I said, "Do you know anybody who's dressing up as a witch for Halloween?" And I told her what I wanted. She says, "I'll do it." So we spent an afternoon. And this is kind of showing the importance of scouting your locations too. I went out at the time of day that I knew we would be shooting, and went around to see what fall leaves were left, and found this beautiful red tree that was one of the only colorful ones around. So just had that figured out so that I would have the shade for her to be in, and then taking a whole lot of props along. So we had a lot of fun. The cat is actually a replica of her cat. I guess there's a lady in town that will make a cat that looks, or a pet that looks exactly like your pet when your pet has passed on. So she had this stuffed cat that was so realistic. So we had a lot of fun with different props and different locations here. I was over at the cemetery just finding out where a funeral service was going to be. And as I came back around on the road, I saw this tree, and it was just perfect, so spooky. So I pulled everything out. It was a gray day. The leaves were blowing around, and set up my chair. I had the lantern, and I had a little sign I'd made, "Come set a spell." Again, to commemorate an occasion, I went over to the cemetery on Remembrance Day, and there were just a few people there. You could tell there were parents of some of the soldiers, and there were other soldiers that were obviously friends. And this grave site really struck me, because somebody had brought a cup of Tim Hortons, a cup of coffee, for the fallen soldier. And that just really struck a chord with me. So I put the chair there, and then I had some poppies that I used on the side just to show that it was Remembrance Day. but just getting out and seeing the things in your city or in your neighborhood. This project has really made me get out and be more active and checking into what's going on. So here we are with the last ice of the season. This would have been, last May up at the lake, and it was like a little iceberg. So I had my rubber boots on and put the chair out, and just at sunset. So capturing some special times. And then this is the first snow in the fall, really cold, ugly November day. And we were out at an auto wreckers. It was a camera club outing. And so I took the chair along and some props and just tried different things. And it was really to show the cold and the snow. Again, I borrowed the white skates from a friend. I'd got rid of my skates. The brown skates are my husband's. And it again connected people, because the people I asked about skates, and they were interested in, well, what'd you do? What'd you do? Where are the pictures? And everybody gets more involved. Okay. So another thing that a project can do for you, and it's done for me, is makes you come up with ideas for self-portraits. You don't always have people around to pose for you or to be part of it. And so you can plan to do your own portraits there and have a little fun with that. So this is at a special garden. The fellow who had this was quite young and he passed away suddenly. So his mother still maintains the gardens and has a greenhouse there. So you're welcome to go in and shop and whatever. But this was during apple blossom time. So then I sat myself in another spot under the tree, looking out where all the pots are and all the work that's going to happen. It's a really unique place. You can see he's got an old chair here that he put for the peonies to grow up through. And there's just no end of photo opportunities there. This was one of my most fun self-portraits. I had this idea that I would, paint the blossoms on the tree. So this is an apple tree. But I didn't have any paint at the cottage. So I started going door to door asking if anybody had some pink or purple paint. And I only had to go to 2 places. And this gal says, oh yeah, I teach paint pouring classes, so I can mix you up whatever you want. So I got the paint and off I went and set this up. This is just before sunset, so it's the late evening light. Very nice light. A lot of interest in this picture. Excuse me. So sometimes you don't have to have your whole self in the picture. This is just, the hand and the white sleeve. And now this one doesn't have the red chair, but just another idea using the hand coming in, and it gives a sense of motion too, that I'm placing the peony in the scene. So here's another of my painting ideas. I said it was a big job, but somebody had to do it. So again, adding in my thermal mug from the bay and painting the yellow on the canola. It was kind of funny because I had a text as I was out there doing this from a guy that was going by on the highway, and he says, oh, I just saw you out there. I can hardly wait to see the pictures, but I'm on my way to work up north somewhere. So again, generating interest. This picture I did of myself looking at the house that I grew up in. It's a farm home, and I was on my way to a family affair, so I couldn't go in. And I and it's wood tick season, so I didn't want to end up being at the family event and looking for wood ticks. Just another idea. I did this as a live photo, but it wouldn't come through as a live photo. So the umbrella was actually twirling, and then you loop it. So it's done on the phone, and you loop it, and then the umbrella keeps moving. So sorry, I couldn't make a GIF work in this program. So every now and then you have a bright idea, I guess. And I had this light bulb that I had done a picture of, and you guys can figure out how the light bulb is lit up when it's not plugged in. So the last thing I want to talk about is elevating your images through different photo techniques. So I'll just touch on a few that I like to use and that are kind of fun. And the first, of course, is using a lens ball. So I took this picture so that you can see my setup. I find the lens ball has a little clear stand and it fits into my tripod base perfectly. So I can have the lens ball on the tripod, change the height, change the angle very easily. Sorry, I'm getting a little choked up. Lots of people like to turn their lens ball pictures right way up. So this is how it's taken, but then people like to flip them. So I just thought I'd stick that one in so you could see. And this was at the maple syrup or the maple sap collecting. And I left the tripod in this case in the bottom so you can see. And then in this picture, I show what I did to take it out. So I cloned it out. And then I used a filter. I think this is a topaz filter, just to give a little more artsy, abstract look to the whole scene. So again, when I was at this house later in the season, the vegetation was so tall and it just seemed to be a big mess. And then I thought, well, what if I convert it to black and white and just bring the important parts back? So in Photoshop, I converted it to black and white, masked out the black and white layer onto the color so that I ended up with just the important parts in color. So you notice I brought back a little bit of the turquoise blue on the house, not quite at full opacity, and then emphasized the chair and the tea setup. And that was my mother's teapot that was given to her as a wedding present. The picture that you saw before of the old car, I just put that into Little Planet, which is in Photoshop, or you can, what's it called? On the phone, there's an app called Roll World. And you can change your photos into this circular or into a different design, depending what you want to do with it. So I just put that in so you could see, a different technique. This is a multiple exposure, again, put together in Photoshop. And again, Jerry was such a good sport to go out in the field and do this for me. This is a little church out in the countryside. Well, it used to be a church, and it's a favorite spot for my girlfriend and I to go. She lives very close to this. So I put the red chair out in the on the edge of the church, and I called it Waiting for the Service to start. And then I used a filter, not very strong, but a filter out of topaz to just give it a little bit of a different look, a little dreamier look. It softened everything. Another one out in the countryside, when these trains stop, they block the crossings for about 4 miles. So we hung around and took pictures for a long time, and we finally gave up and had to drive, I think, 3 miles to be able to get past the train while it's just sitting there before it gets its turn to move on. It's really fun to set up the different angles as if the chair is looking out into the distance. And then again, I used a topaz filter, but I took it off the chair, and you notice the stop sign and the railway crossing signs are sharp, so I masked it off. So just trying some different techniques. And the same scene, just a little bit different composition, and a totally different filter gave it a very different look. Then this was when we were visiting, as a group, we were visiting the highest train bridge in Western Canada. And I wanted the train in the picture, and then I did a slow shutter speed. And of course, I wasn't set up for this, so I handheld it at about a 15th of a second and managed to get that opening between the cars as they went whisking by. So it's another technique to try, the slow shutter speed with different, in different situations. So again here, slow shutter speed, maybe a 15th of a second or a 20th. And that was on a tripod, but this little stream is moving really fast in the spring. And then when I went to Mazatlan this winter, of course, I couldn't take the chair, but I took some pictures of it before I left in my studio, and just had a folder of files. And then when I went out to see the Manigotes, or the statues that they put up for Carnival in I guess this was in February, I stopped at every statue. I hired a taxi or a pulmonía to stop at every statue so I could take pictures. And this is the Call of the Sea. And it's just, the statues are just phenomenal. You can see the guy I included on the left just for scale. And then later in Photoshop, I put the chair in. I just did a composite. And this sky, I thought, I went purposely at sunset, and then I was so mad because these clouds were coming in. And then it turned out that they were so dramatic, and that's what these clouds looked like. It was incredible. So I got some very nice pictures of the Manigotes. Okay, so another time when I used long shutter speed, of course, is to get the stars in the sky, and just at sunset. And I put this in because I didn't realize this until I got home, but in the upper right here, just put my mouse up there, that's the I guess it's a Starlink, is it? Starlink train going through, and I was lucky enough to catch it. So I put the chair out on the dock with the paddle, and you'll notice that they're not tack sharp because, of course, the dock is moving. There's always a bit of motion. So the dock is moving, but the water turned perfectly still. So it's just kind of a fun technique to try. Another time I'll put the chair back further so there maybe isn't quite so much motion, but just to give you an idea of things that you might want to try. And then again, went out. Jerry was good enough to stand on the dock, and we've got the start of the Northern Lights plus just these millions of stars. And I was hopping mad because people come into this area to to see the northern lights or to look at the stars, and they leave their headlights on. So I'm going, turn your lights off. And I'm really kind of angry about all this. And then when I looked at this picture, I went, hey, wait a minute. It actually lit up the docks very nicely. And I think this particular card just drove in and made a circle around, so just lit up the docks and then was gone. So sometimes happy accidents happen. I didn't have to get out a flashlight and start lighting the docks. So this would be about 11 at night or 11:30 at night. So we've got just the sky starting to light up with the northern lights. So just keep in mind that creativity is just a wild mind and a disciplined eye. You start looking for places to go, or you start looking at spots in a new way. It's an amazing way to flex your creative mind once you get a project going, and you create a body of work that you're really, really happy with and really proud of. So you got to make sure your project is fun, and I've had so much fun doing this project. Do a lot of planning in advance for your props, the time of day, when you want to be there. And I keep a little book of ideas. If you're more modern than I am, you might want to keep that list on your phone. I like it on paper. But last summer, if I didn't know what to do, if I was going, what can I do today? I would look at my list of ideas and off I'd go. I think, you know, your project, by using the language of photography, you start to tell your story. So this picture was a bunch of lights from the dollar store, little lights, oh, what do you call them? Finger lights, I think, and you can clip them on. So I'd clip them onto a dog leash, and then my friend went out swinging this bunch of lights on the dock, and we got all these amazing reflections. So you just never know what's going to happen. So you have to kind of think about your project, think what you might want to do, and then let your imagination go. And you'll start thinking of ideas and get out there and create something special for you. And if you can't get started, I find I set aside half an hour to work on a setup, to shoot something, or to do some editing. And then all of a sudden I look up and it's 2 hours later, you're just carried off into that creative world. So share your story, you know, your project through through Facebook, Instagram, you know, make photo books. I find that this project has really increased interest on my Facebook and Instagram pages. So this was the oldest wooden grain elevator in Western Canada, and they were taking it apart very carefully last year and trying to save, and they were selling a lot of the pieces out of it. And then there was a bit of an accident one day and the darn thing burned down. So luckily the chair got there before that happened. So I think when the weather smartens up around here, we're going to be on the road again. And I want to thank you, Linda, for having me here. And I want to thank all of you for being here, and sharing my story with you has been just great. So thanks again. And
Darlene, this was fun. Let me get you to take down your screen.
Yeah.
Just got a couple of quick questions for you. Sue was wondering if you can, without having to go back, do you know the name of the image with your red car and the Crown Royal bag, or the Crown Royal?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about it?
What was the name of it? Did you give it a name?
Oh, I called it the Flirt.
The Flirt. Perfect. Perfect. All right. So Susan's question, and this is kind of a fun question. She wants to know, do you drive around with a chair in your car all the time?
Most of the time.
I mean, that's
And all these props. I don't have much room for groceries or anything else. It's like the chair goes in and then you work everything around it.
yeah, that's not a tiny little prop. Um, that's funny. And then Kate was curious, do you ever have to repaint it, like touch it up?
Well, I don't know whether you noticed, but the few pictures I showed from the first year, it was a different chair. A friend had lent it to me, and it was a really old chair. It was really heavy and it was big. But then she needed it back. And so last year I got my own red chair and painted it up. So far I haven't had to do any touch up, but yeah, it gets banged around pretty good, and it goes in the water and it goes here and there.
Well, this was fun. So I'm just going to say, when you get ready to get rid of that mailbox, I would like to call dibs on it, and then Charlie Hickman will let you borrow it. But I want that. That's really, really cool. I'm also a little envious of the lilacs and the peonies. I think they were little crocuses. I don't think I get those here, so I was a little jealous of all that.
Oh.
But what a fun project. And I know there are a lot of nice comments in the chat, and I'll share that with you for certain. So let me go ahead and close out this presentation or this session. And thank you for doing this. I'm super glad that I asked, and I'm so delighted that you just said, of course, like you didn't even hesitate. And I learned something too. I didn't realize you had been teaching photography. I didn't realize you had all of this knowledge base and a portfolio, a collection of photos that are just ripe for sharing. So shame on me for not asking earlier. So, all right, everyone, you can connect with Darlene through her website. It's perkind.myportfolio.com, and you can find her on Instagram at Roscoe Dosco. Next week, Jennifer Lee Warner will join us with her presentation, Beyond the Snapshot, Curating a Portfolio. Until next time, go out and create something beautiful. And I hope that we see you again soon.